host, Karla Nivens.
Welcome to the Every Heart, Every Woman show. I am your host, Karla Nivens. Our show is a program of Love Ministries, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You can find out all of the great information about Love Ministries as you head to their website. Go to loveministriesbills.org. You can get all the great information about Love Ministries there. Also, check out my website, karlanivens.com. Well, I am so excited to welcome for the first time Laurie Oknowsky. Laurie began writing at a young age, mostly recording her life in a journal. Then a couple of years later, she would write poetry and quotes, not truly realizing where that would take her. At first, she didn't share her writing until her senior year in high school. She was surprised how well her poetry was received. So writing was always a secret passion for Laurie. Never thinking she'd be taken seriously, she kept it to herself until college. And after trying out different majors, she settled on English, a cover up to what she really wanted to do, which is write professionally. And then as she was a community of writer on Wetpath and Inkeep, she didn't give much thought to getting published traditionally until she started to see she was trending and began to see her fictional characters growing. So the publishing process has been very painless. I love that. With the constant support from the writers community on Instagram and continues on Wetpad and in Inkeep. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Is that
Inked
right?
it, yeah, inked it.
Ink it. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to mention love and support from her family, which we all love and need. She wishes to continue her writing full time and continues to publish her young adult romance books professionally. Very interesting. Well, number one, Laurie, thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Every Heart, Every Woman show.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate being invited, and I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am so intrigued by the path that you have taken into a published writer. And so it sounds like you naturally kind of worked your way into it. And that passion was always present in your life. So tell us more about the road that you have taken to become a published author.
It wasn't easy. I don't think it is for anybody, but it wasn't easy. And it was always something that I really never considered doing books. Lots of the things that, especially with poetry, it always flowed as if it had a story that it could be built upon. But no, I never really considered myself like a writer of novels. And a lot of the things that I would write, I would keep to myself quietly in a journal. And a lot of my frustrations, a lot of my anger always, went into doing little things, like quoting, poetry. There are lots of times where I would rip paper because I was just writing so hard because I was so angry. Because my home was not necessarily a place where we felt as though we could actually express ourselves. And so the only place that I had to express myself was with a pen and paper, so
yeah,
it was hard. And I kept it to myself because I never, especially, and it's not like they probably did it intentionally, but it's just how my family was. It was always, oh, that's great, and it stuck with me, and it didn't really go anywhere until I had a dream at night, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote it down, and that was my very first book, but it never went anywhere. So when I was in therapy, that's when I finally got it in my head, I'm going to do this. And that's where my debut novel came from. And I had a great therapist that walked through with me my self-consciousness and you know, the nasty things that I would say in the back of my head, and we walked through it step by step. We walked through it, and I did it. So
Yeah. And I can tell that you are a very expressive person. So I can imagine that if you were in a situation where you felt like you couldn't say the words out of your mouth that you wanted to, writing would be like a great outlet to get those words out from inside of you, out somewhere.
and I think that has to do with too a lot of different creative types of people. You know, whether it is you write songs, whether it is you do art, you know, you always put a bit of your own emotions into it. And if you feel like emotionally, what's a lack of a better term, backed up, you know, I don't want to say the real word, but when you feel emotionally backed up and you have no other kind of ways to express yourself, whether it's because someone prohibits you from doing it, or if it's yourself that does it, that creative outlet always seemed to make me feel better because I got it out,
Right.
you know, and rather than screaming at the top of my lungs, I did it in my notebook. And it made me feel a lot better. Whether or not I listened to sad music as I was doing it or what have you, it was a release, there's what it was.
Yeah. So you say your first novel you said it came after you had a dream, you woke up, you wrote it. It Did you ever publish it?
No,
Plans of publishing it,
it's sitting in a black garbage bag in my closet in my office.
Really?
So I'm always I used to sleep on top of it because I had a bed that had drawers, and so all of and I wrote it by hand. So like I would sleep on top of it. So it's always there with me. It's not going anywhere. But it's just it's too much to like go back and maybe over time I might revisit it, but it's a lot of editing that needs to be done with it because it's a mess. And I grew a lot since writing that because I was a teenager. So your writing style changes, you know, and you try to I have a big problem with being repetitive in some of the things. So I constantly use tools, and quite honestly, I don't know any author that doesn't write with thesauruses and different encyclopedias to look up different words and terminology. And so I try to do all of that. And believe me, it's painful. It hurts because, you know, you have to think all the time and on your toes.
Yes.
I'm so afraid of the cringeworthiness of what's written in that book. I don't know if I would be able to write it now because it's at a time where I was young. I was like 16, 17 when I wrote it. I don't know if I would actually be able to pick it up again.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm working on something. It's going to start. I have an editor for a book that I wrote that was on Wattpad for a long time. And I took it off of there and I have it on Inked now, and it's complete, but it needs editing. So that's going to be my next book that I'm going to publish, and I'm writing its sequel now. So.
Oh, nice. So tell us more about Inked. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Inked and Wattpad.
Wattpad. They are a storybook platform. Okay. Where and a lot of indie authors use it too to kind of get a jump start, like a platform to, you know, dive in the realm of an audience. So they build a following using Wattpad, Inked, and Wattpad and Inked, you can publish with them professionally. It's not easy to do, and sometimes I feel as though they have kind of clicks to where somehow and believe me, there's lots of books that I've picked up and put down because I can't read them. Some of them it hurts to read because they're unedited. They're not they don't use the proper grammar. It kind of hurts. So I'm like, I can't read it. I can't read it. But those are books that have like thousands and thousands, sometimes millions of read. I'm like, why? They're terrible. But they're both, and they both run differently. With Wattpad, you can include music, you can include art in your books.
Okay.
On Inked, it's just straight text.
Okay.
And it's a lot easier to upload. It's a lot easier, and they rate their stories differently. So it's not based upon how many reads you have. It's based upon how many times you do update, because more people start reading your books. A lot of people like completed books rather than ones that get updated every week.
Okay.
And what I like better about Inked is your rating depends upon the reviews and the comments that you have, the interaction. Whereas with Wattpad, it has to do with how many reads you have. Okay. And you're on boards that is easily searched when you have more reads and you update more often. Whereas with Inked, you have the ability, and more writers write for themselves on there than for necessarily the reader, because it's more at a slower pace. But there are competitive websites. There's Chapters, Episode. With Episode, I tried using them, but they are animated, so it's a lot of coding,
okay,
and illustration and music and things like that. I tried, I couldn't get it figured out, so I didn't continue with it. I used to read it, but they're geared towards certain age group. They all are, but you can get away with being on the edge of what sells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can see how being on those websites would, as you get a following there, you're like, okay, I can even move on to the next stages.
Yeah. I have a friend who I started reading her on Wattpad. And I play with her. I joke her with, she's a female Stephen King. At least I think so. Okay. And she loves the genre of horror and thrillers. And she wrote a really great piece called Black Hollow. She's an incredible author, and it's in a 3-book series, and it's a historical thriller, and it's beautiful. And she has a great following, and she's already published, 5, and all by herself. Okay. So a lot of them can either go the traditional route, which a lot of them do, and a lot of them also go the independent route, which I'm now slowly but surely, because I went the traditional route with Class of '95, which I'm very happy with for a jumping off point. But now that I see that, and I'm building connections with people, and that I can get help from if I need it, I'm going to try my hand at self-publishing, because I'm finding I'm doing most of the promotion myself anyway. And there is no guarantee when it comes to traditional publishers anyway that you're going to get, a best-selling book. And half the time when you do see New York Times bestseller, they're not. Right. But because they have a name and it doesn't mean that their books
get that status.
Exactly. I love Anne Rice. She's a New York Times bestseller, but has she made books that are not bestsellers? Oh yeah. But she can put that on her books because she is. Right. Categorically, she is. Right. I would love to say I would love to get to that route, that stage, but I'm also a realist. I know I'm not. But at least I know that what I do put out, I work hard on it. And why not try to get the most of it on my own if I can?
Yeah.
So
I understand. So tell us about your creative process. How do you build out your characters, and how do you go from getting this idea, until the, finished
oh
product that
God.
you like? Yes.
This reminds
And that's a
this question.
painful process.
This is a loaded question, Karla. I mean, it reminds me of questions I used to get in my 9-to-5 jobs, during review time, when you're up for your raise. They're like, Laurie, your numbers are so high on productivity. How do you do it? I'm like,
Work hard.
I don't.
Stop. Yeah.
I don't. I would tell them I really don't know. I really don't. Like there's things called pantsers and people who planners and pants. I'm a pantster.
Okay.
Usually it's, I can be doing random things, and it happens more often when I'm writing like a prose or a poem or something. It's like, oh, that's a really good line, and I jot it down. When it comes to a book, like with Class of 95, I always kind of knew I wanted to write a book that was loosely based on myself. And when I say it's loosely based, no one can get any more loosely based than me. It's extremely loosely based on my life, predominantly only because it takes place where I grew up.
Okay.
And I wanted to do that because, I love the town I grew up in. But that was really the one and only time I just had an idea. That's why I wanted to write it. I wanted to write it based upon somebody who was a loner, who didn't quite fit in with, the society of her school and her town and everything, but she wasn't alone either. And, I wanted to write a non-cliche that had cliches in it, but there's a reason for all of that. The book I wrote before was another book, another idea I had that I dream up a lot of different ideas, and then I have to wake up in the morning and write it down if it's good enough. Otherwise I forget. And then the characters just start talking. And in the back of my head, I just hear them, and it's really irritating. So I have to write them out. And if I don't, they kind of harass me, and they come up with their own names and their own people. And then I just build on them, but I don't write anything down. It's all in here. And somehow I just keep track of everything. I don't know how I do it, but it's really the only part of my life that I am like that.
Yeah.
Maybe because I enjoy doing it so much and I enjoy building them. I have about 7 projects that are on in my head, but I don't write them down, but I know that they're there and I know what I want to do with them. But I really, there are people that can write 10, 15, 20 books at a time. They have spreadsheets and they have big, huge books with tabs of different colors and storyboards and all of this wonderful reference tools. And I'm like, how I can't keep track of that. Half of the time I can't keep track of what my kid ate like 3 hours ago. How do you, please tell me how you do it?
Well, I think everybody, that's why I like to ask that question. Every single person answers that question differently. And your answer, I think I identify a lot with your answer. That happens to me. Things like when you said it won't leave me alone. And, then that's kind of the thing I go with right now, the thing that's up there, and I think I have to get this out.
Right.
So
and that's why I tend to only write one book at a time. Because I have to dedicate, otherwise I will get myself confused and maybe accidentally put one character in a book that shouldn't be in that book and is in another one.
Yeah.
you know? So I have to try to be careful. I try to separate every character I've ever written from each other. I try not to get myself too in deep. Like I'm working on 2 books at one time, but I'm not working on one at this very moment because I'm at a standstill. And I get myself involved with these complex plots, multi-layered, multi-characters, and it kind of puts me in a place that I'm like, "Ugh, I know how I wanted to end, but how do I get there?"
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So with that one, I'm with a developmental editor that is working wonders with me, but it's a slow process. So we're breaking that book up into 3 books. It's going to be a series.
Oh, wow. Very nice.
I'm tired just talking about it now.
I love it. I love it. And because honestly, what you're saying is, okay, you start this thing and you get some help and you know, have somebody help you to organize it all. And honestly, you just keep working until you get to the end. Like you don't overwhelm yourself. Don't, you know, just don't give up on it. You know,
No.
it's there.
Yeah, you can't. And, you know, but you know what, though, if you do have that feeling as if you do have to give it up for whatever reason, you know, before I wrote Class of 95, I was in a self-imposed writer's block. I was devoid of any motivation, any inspiration. I had probably, and it's self-diagnosed, but I was a psychology major too, so I wasn't too far off of my own diagnosis. And even my therapist agreed with me. And I'm a big advocate on therapy. I'm a huge advocate.
We are on this show. We really are. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of it. And she really helped me realize that, you know what, maybe I did have a bit of postpartum, because it was soon after my son was born. I had a miscarriage before him, and I had a threatened miscarriage during the pregnancy with him. So a lot of trauma, a lot of, you know, I do it a lot to myself too, to this day. I have a lot of self-deprecating humor about myself, which turned out to be very injuring. So I was in a self-imposed block for years. Like I said, I had no motivation, no inspiration, no nothing. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy that I decided I'm going to finish this book, and I'm going to eventually look into publishing it. And my husband's very supportive. He's like, "You want to do it? I'm here to support you. Go ahead and do it." You know? So, yeah.
How do you recommend that other people build confidence in themselves, and how do you build confidence in yourself?
It's a battle every single day. And I also know, again, talking about I'm, like I said, I'm a huge advocate for mental health care, self-care, self-love, everything. And a lot of the times, you know, unfortunately, I need to listen to myself of what I tell people more often, and more often times than I don't heed. Believe me, there's plenty of times, you know, I cry for no reason, but I know that there's a reason. And over time, I just learned to accept the fact, no, I have to do it. But at the same time, I know that if I do push myself too hard and I force myself to write and work, it's going to hurt the piece. It's not going to benefit me. It's not going to benefit a reader. And if I don't enjoy reading what I wrote, nobody else is going to. So what I always say to myself, write every day, write anything. And no matter what, just keep doing it, because you don't even know, maybe something like that in that moment where you have no confidence in yourself, maybe that would be something that you can put out to the world, and they say, you know what, I feel that same way. And that's what I love to hear. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but this is my show for as long as I'm on here, and I'm going to make it my show.
There you go.
I have a lot of reviews where all I've heard from people, God, your characters are so relatable. I knew somebody just like that. I'm just like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, that makes me feel great. Or I even love the fact that people are like, I hate that character. I've had in Class of 95, there's a character that a reader told me I have plans on how I would kill her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like she was giving me ideas on how I should,
though, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a reason why she was the way she was. She was not just your average run-of-the-mill mean girl. Mm-hmm. She was certifiable. Mm-hmm. She's certifiable without medication, without diagnosis. She was a nut job. Mm-hmm. You know, but she's like, I don't care. I still hate her. I'm like, but I love her because she was that way. And I couldn't kill her off. Quite honestly, she didn't deserve to be killed off. But I think her ending was poetic and ironic in a way, because all she ever wanted was forgiveness. She wanted forgiveness, and nobody was willing to give it to her because what she did was beyond repute. But I think to a degree, everybody deserves it. Yes, it's a hard thing to do, but everybody deserves it. Even a fictional character deserves forgiveness, because no matter what, that character has a little bit of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You always write. It's like with Anne Rice. She always described Lestat as two sides of herself, which is really scary to think of. If you ever read those books, you'd know Lestat's not a lovable character. He's really not, especially in the first book. I mean, he killed someone simply because he wanted them, and he killed them, and he turned them to spend an eternity just like him. How is that a nice character?
Right.
But we all have that in us, you know? Yeah. And to, say, it's not an easy thing, because you got to work through it a lot of the times alone. Right. You know?
Yeah. So let me ask you this. How can people find your books? Like, I know that after hearing this conversation and after hearing your process and just kind of how real you are, like you're putting it out there, I know that's how your books are written. How do people find your books?
I'm on social media wise. I'm on Instagram. Laurie Writes Stories.
Okay.
The book is on Amazon.
Okay.
In paperback, Kindle, and now it's available in hardback, which I have right here, and it's simply gorgeous. Nice. I had to get my own copy. I and my publisher's website, which is Yukioto Publishing House. Okay. And on that site, it's available in flip book, ebook, paperback, and hardback on Yukioto. Okay. So that's how you can find it, but it's on every single kind of platform. I mean, I searched it, and I'm on like tons of other sites that I had no idea about, because Yukioto deals a lot with in Europe and Asia.
Okay.
So, but here, Amazon, you go on Amazon, you can order it. Yeah.
Love it. And Laurie is Laurie. Laurie. Laurie Oknowsky, because
Oknowsky.
Yes, I want to make sure that people know exactly how to search and find you. Well, I have loved this, Laurie. I have enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for being on the Every Heart, Every Woman show.
Thank you so much. And this has to be hands down one of my favorite ones.
Well, thank you. We
try. You're just, well, yeah, you have to be that way, you know. I mean, it's not a good thing to be in our forums to be anything but ourselves.
Exactly.
So I loved it.
That's what people gravitate to. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Laurie. Everyone, have a great week. We'll see you back here next week. Enjoy this song, Oh Love. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Yeah. Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Oh love, nothing else could help with your everlasting love lifted me. Oh love, nothing